What's happening? Welcome to Beyond the Box. I am replacing AJ Riley this week as the man just became a father for the third time. So congratulations to AJ. I'm alongside Eric Vincent. What up, E? They can't shut up me. And we got some football to discuss, I believe. Tell me, man, what is this show about again?
Hey, it's good to be on here with you, man. Football-based show, man. Summertime right now. We're getting close to the fall. This is the time when we get all excited for what's to come in the fall. We got NCAA football, NFL. We get a little bit of fantasy. Pretty much everything football-based over here just to get you ready for one of the best sports in the fall, man. I love this time of year. Some pretty good interaction thus far. Me and AJ have had some good rankings and some good combos to rile up the audience. So hopefully we can get the same thing going because we got a lot to talk about and get into.
Yeah, and the Lions did something that back when this started, I was praying and hoping would never happen because I always thought it would be like the worst teams and the worst luck, but it grew over time, obviously. We're talking about HBO's Hardknocks, and this year, the Detroit Lions are the focal point for HBO's new show. I thought this stuff came out like on Sundays. I'm thinking football, I'm thinking Sundays, but apparently that's not the case, right? We got
every Tuesday. I believe the first episode airs August 9th on HBO. I believe it's 5-hour-long episodes. But yeah, I was surprised too. I thought it would have been a Sunday or at least maybe a weekend thing to lead into it. But yeah, every Tuesday we'll be getting an episode on the coverage and what the Lions are getting into. And I was with you. I was a little nervous about them being that team to be featured on the show. But based on what's happened this summer, it's hard not to be excited for what they got going on. I think they're a perfect fit. I actually learned that the NFL has a rule that if a team doesn't meet one of the three following criteria statements, they have to have either a first-year head coach, they have made the playoffs in one of the past 2 seasons, or they've been in Hard Knocks in the past 10 years. So that means only 3 teams qualified: the Jets, the Panthers, and the Lions. And I think we won in terms of the most optimistic teams of that group. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, your storylines with the Jets this year are going to be surrounding their quarterback and everything that's been going on in the offseason, which would have been a little entertaining. The storylines with the Panthers would have been around Matt Rule and obviously the quarterback battle that's going on there, which would have been entertaining. But I think out of the 3 situations, we have the most entertaining head coach out of the 3, just from their press conferences alone. I think Dan Campbell has captivated the audience, especially in Detroit, but throughout the country a little bit as well, with the whole biting kneecaps and everything that's gone on, and him being a former football player, a former old school tight end, didn't really care that much about catching passes, cared a lot more about knocking guys on their asses. And so it should be very entertaining from a head coach point of view. I'm actually really looking forward to this. And that was one of the reasons I think when years ago I didn't want to see it. I didn't give a damn about what Matt Patricia had to say. Didn't care about the regime before him either. So having a head coach that I want to see will definitely help to make me want to watch the show anyway. And obviously being a Lions fan, we're going to watch.
And I'm glad you hit on the coaches too, because they're all pretty entertaining. We got to see a little bit of peek at it with the past drafts. Like I love when Jameson Williams got picked and Antoine Randall comes in the draft room and he's hyped up. I'm really excited to see them. Yeah, for the whole staff, whether it's Aaron Glenn, who was a hot option for a possible head coaching job, Dan Gamble with his entertaining personality, and the team really taking on that mantra. I think it's going to be really exciting, especially with the young players that we're talking about. Aiden Hutchinson, obviously, he's going to be the most talked about guy. Number 2 pick, Michigan product, Michigan made guy. And he's got expectations to be one of the biggest premier DNs in the NFL. It's from him, Jameson Williams. He might not play for a little while, but I follow him and the Lions on Instagram. I just watched a video of him creating like art pictures and stuff on their IG page. They're a pretty entertaining bunch, man. I think it's a lot of guys that really going to get some good content for this.
Yeah, and generally in these shows, the wide receivers and the secondary are generally entertaining groups to listen to when they're having conversations. It can be a little full of themselves, rightfully so for a lot of their situations, but definitely an entertaining group to watch. And with ours, it should be entertaining because both of ours are not good. The wide receiver situation has been bad in Detroit for a while. Amon-Ra St. Brown obviously surprised everybody last year with that second half of the season that he had and looked like he could be one of these guys to lead the way for a young wide receiver core going forward. And our secondary is just absolute trash and has been for years. Jeff Okudah can't get off the bench. The man's been hurt year in, year out. He hasn't even played a full season yet in the NFL, and he's starting his third year. And he's the best we got, it looks like, coming into the season. So, except for a couple of add-ons we've recently made. But so it should be interesting to see those two groups what is going to be the focal point for them from HBO's point of view? Are the narrators going to come in with that narration voice and talk about the Detroit Lions have had a very bad wide receiver core over the last so many years? Jameson Williams trying to be that young stud to lead the way forward to the future of new life. All that crap that they're going to do while they're showing video of the guys running routes and all that.
That was a good audition voice. I like that. We'll send it to HBO. We'll send it to HBO.
You, I appreciate it.
No, I'm with you, man. Especially, hitting at the position battles. Kuda's got a lot to prove. Even some of the young players they had. Jerry Jenkins was coming off an injury. He had a really good flash of games for a while. He was playing really good towards the second half of the season after the injuries. Monty Owarie has had pretty good impact. Came off 6 interceptions, including one of the biggest plays of the season with that pick against Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. So they'll definitely be fun to see and check out. The linebacker battle is going to be good. You're bringing in Jared Davis coming back. Derek Barnes was pretty high on when they drafted last season. I really love Malcolm Rodriguez, who they got out of Oklahoma State. Seems like a gritty guy that really fits the identity of this team. And, of course, the veteran they just signed to a deal in Alex Anzalone. So they got a lot of good competition position battles that I think will get some pretty good coverage in the show, especially for sure for the positions.
Yeah, and for those of us that are more of the diehard sports fans that want to see our draft picks and see them play, this is a great opportunity for that because, look, I'm big fan of Malcolm Rodriguez as well. What he did at Oklahoma State was fantastic. However, he is 5'10.5". Yep. Generally pretty small for a linebacker in the NFL. I don't know how much playing time we're going to get to see of him on Sundays. So it's going to be great to be able to see him on apparently Tuesdays because that's when Hard Knocks is coming out. To be able to see what he can bring to the table, to see that enthusiasm, that energy. And I think this is a guy that will end up being on the practice squad, on the scout squad, whatever, playing the defense to get our offense ready for the upcoming game each week. And we're not going to be able to see that once Hard Knocks is done. So Getting a chance to see him now, and look, I hope he proves me wrong. I hope we end up seeing him on Sundays this year. I don't think it's going to happen. I've been wrong plenty of times before. I thought Matt Leinart was going to be an all-pro Hall of Fame quarterback when he left USC. That clearly wasn't the case. So I am not a prophetic person whatsoever when it comes to people's careers, and Malcolm could absolutely prove me wrong, and I hope he does. I just feel with his size, it's going to take a bit for him to prove himself in the NFL.
Absolutely. 2 guys I got on my board that I'm really excited to watch. One's not a rookie. One is. I got a friend who actually went to Jackson State. They raved like crazy about James Houston and his upside. Again, he's kind of like a Malcolm Rodriguez where has high upside, but then again, may not pan out potentially. But they said his jump off the ball is just unbelievable. He's got a prototypical body for an edge rusher, very quick off the line, and the Lions need one immediately next across from Aiden Hutchinson. Hutchinson's going to get his snaps. He's going to be the focal point, but there is opportunity for somebody else to slide in on that other side. And I'm excited to see what Houston can bring. Shout out to Jackson State. And then another player, again, I think Jared Goff's going to get a lot of conversation in this because we see a lot more optimism in his name than we did last season. That's for damn sure. So make or break for him. He's the last year of his contract. You got a lot more help around him. One of the best offensive lines, not even on paper. They played very good last season. You saw how well and more comfortable he was when he did get that time too. So for me, I think he's going to be a big focal point and a lot of pressure on him. I think it's going to be a topic we'll get into later, but I think a lot of eyes will be on Jared Goff for a make it or break season.
Oh, yeah. And the quarterback in general, that's just the way it's going to be. You are literally the most high-profile position in all of sports. Sure. So bigger than a point guard, shooting guard in the NBA, bigger than a center or captain in hockey, bigger than a pitcher or shortstop in baseball. It's the quarterback, and then it's everybody else. So Jared Goff's going to be thrown in there. I love that you brought up Houston, though, because for those that don't know about this guy, they have no idea who he is. And this is a guy who we should have seen on Saturdays all the time playing for Florida. It didn't work out that way. He ended up leaving Florida before ending up at Jackson State, where this dude led the FCS with 7 forced fumbles. He was tied for second in tackles for loss. He had 16.5 sacks. He knows how to play the game of football. There was just some outside the field stuff that kind of got in the way of his on the field stuff. Right. And so he had to end up, it wasn't working in Florida. Trying to get that playing time, you got to go elsewhere. Luckily, in the new world of transfers, you can absolutely do that without having to wait and sit out. He is prime time, and he showed it to his coach prime time while he was playing there at Jackson State. So it'll be great to see him as well on Tuesdays with Hard Knocks because I think he's going to be proving a lot of people either right or wrong, depending on what you thought of this kid coming into the draft. And if you didn't know about him, I think by the time Hard Knocks is done, you are going to know about him.
I'm with you. I'm definitely with you on that. And we're talking a lot about on the field with it too. I think an important factor to remember with a team that's rebuilding like the Detroit Lions, I'm just interested. We see the upside on the field, but I'm interested and swayed by the personality as well. For Hard Knocks, this is perfect with the guys that they have. I love like Jamal Williams when he comes up and does his post games and he's talking to the media. He's a fun watch every single time. Deandre Swift, who's got a lot of potential and upside for a breakout year. We saw him put on some weight. We saw him working out with Jamar Chase, Leonard Fournette, and I think Jalen Mills is the other guy. You see the charisma, you see the excitement, and again, it goes with the coach as well. I love seeing that from all the guys on the team, whether it's on social media. They put some good content up online for us to get excited through the summer. So I think that's an important part, and I think that's what makes it even better for them, because the teams we were talking about, like the Panthers, they can have a pretty sad Hard Knocks if they had one. I don't see the thrill for them. The Jets are the Jets, so I'm not really sure. It's a lot to be hyped about with the Lions, and I think they're a perfect fit for what we're about to get into.
Yeah, I think with the Panthers, we would have seen nothing but quarterback battle. That would have been like 80% of Hard Knocks is going to be all about Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. And I just don't know how many people are going to want to see that. The Jets have some stuff. Robert Salah, obviously fun to watch, and another guy that's been around the league for a long time and a well-known coach. And he would have brought some great stuff to it. I enjoyed watching him in San Francisco for years, so he would have brought some great stuff to it. But the other players, I just don't know that much about and how much they would bring to it. But that's also one of the fun things about Hard Knocks is all the little tiny scenes that don't really matter about football. So last year was the Chargers and the Rams, and they were talking about, or was that 2 years ago? Was that 2 years ago?
I think it might have been 2 years ago.
When you're stuck inside because of COVID. But it was 2 years ago, where they went both the Chargers and the Rams. And there was one episode where they focused on the COVID testing. And they're cutting back and forth between the two camps, and they're getting that Q-tip stuck all the way up into their brain. Yeah. And you're seeing the toughness or lack thereof for all these tough guys that are terrified about getting this Q-tip swabbed in their nose versus the other guys that are just like, it's whatever, and just sit there and take it. It's just very funny to me seeing these guys come in, and football's the toughest sport there is, so you figure all the guys are tough, and that's absolutely not the case in certain situations. No one wants to get that thing shoved into their brain, very much so with those football players as well. But for me as a fan watching it on TV, I was laughing my ass off.
Man, I can definitely attest. I went to go see Dave Chappelle last year, and they had us get COVID tested before we went into the concert. And it wasn't as aggressive. I remember the beginning of COVID where they were just jamming it like to the brain for real. They went a little bit lighter, but just off seeing that alone had me terrified. So I was in that line petrified. So I could definitely relate to the fear that they had. But again, that just adds to the fun of it. Pretty good time.
Yep. We're going to have a lot of fun watching these names that were picked by the Lions. We're talking about Aiden Hutchinson. We're talking about Jamison Williams, Josh Pascal, as well as obviously Kirby Joseph, James Mitchell, Malcolm Rodriguez, James Houston, and Chase Lucas. These are the rookies that are coming in to the Detroit Lions, trying to make the team. Is obviously we know about Aiden Hutchinson. Obviously, that's like you said, Michigan man, Michigan made, staying right here at home. It's been a while since that happened with the Lions. I think Charles Rogers, when they took out of Michigan State many years ago, was the last time there was this much hype about a local guy being able to stay and play at home. So him we know all about, and there's going to be way too much on him, I'm sure. But these other rookies that we don't know as much about, you mentioned Houston. Is there any other rookie that you're can't wait to see and see what they're going to prove on the field?
Yeah, you mentioned Josh Paschal, I think is how you say his last name. I was very excited to see that they were able to land him from Kentucky. Again, I'm very enthralled with the D-line because I think that's super important in the NFL nowadays. You have to have more. You can't just have one edge rusher. You really need two, and you need an anchor in the middle to push from the D tackles to get them one-on-one matchups. And I think he's a perfect example of what they could use for that. He's a good bull rush technique edge rusher, got some speed to him, got a nice bend as well around the edge. We saw him against good competition as well. So I'm really high on seeing what he can provide. And again, Rodriguez, who we talked about as well. Again, he seems like a spark plug type of player that I think really fits through the identity of this team. Some of that Dan Campbell will really get behind. So those are two of the guys I'm really excited to check out, including Houston as well from Jackson State.
I am very much looking forward to seeing, I think you're right, I think it is Paschal, because when the draft happened, I know a lot of casual fans are like, we just took an edge. Why do we need another edge? And so they're assuming we're just going to have the same thing on each side. And that's very much not the case, and you're going to see this when you watch Hard Knocks. Hutchinson and Paschal are very different players.
Yes.
Hutch is a true edge.
Yep.
He's going to burn you with speed off the end and get past the defender that way. Maybe use a swim move, maybe hook underneath them and go. But Paschal is power and speed, and he uses it in different ways. He doesn't just come from the edge. He comes from the different gaps, and he's able to use that ability. And the Lions need this. Let me remind you guys out there that 27.5 points per game, 31st in the league. That was our defense last year. 29th in pressure percentages and 30th in sacks last season. We need all the help we can get, and I'm absolutely with you about it as far as the trenches. I have always thought building in and going out from there. You start on the offensive and defensive lines, you build those, and then you build the teams behind them on each side, and that's how you build a championship football team. It's been proven time and time again, and we absolutely need this. And I think what a lot of fans are going to see when they watch Hard Knocks is that Paschal and Hutchinson are not the same kind of player. They're both great players, and they both have potential to be great in the NFL, but they are not the same player.
No, they're going to show that the Lions can be a little bit more versatile, because you see guys like, Grant, we're not saying this is who he can be, but you see the ability of guys like Aaron Donald to not just rush from the middle, but take you from the outside as well. Seeing that their skill set complements each other like that, you can see them mixing and matching and finding different creative stunts to use and throw offenses off. And I think you have that if they pan out correctly. You just said it. Hutchinson's going to get all the talk. We know what we're going to see from him, but whoever anchors that other side is massive. That's very important. I think Charles Harris had a really good, not breakout, but he was very impressive from what we expected coming out from last season. He was very nice, but they still need to solidify that other side. And I think we're going to get a good peek at Paschal and the other guys on that line to see what they can do.
The other rookie I am really looking forward to see is Kirby Joseph.
Yes. Okay.
Kirby Joseph out of Illinois. Hutchinson, where he'd been there his whole career, but it was really this last year that made him stand out. We knew who Hutchinson was, obviously being Detroit people, Michigan State people, whatever you are, wherever you sit on that rivalry. You knew who Hutchinson was, but really this last season was his breakout season. Kirby Joseph, very much the same way. He played a platoon for the first 3 years. He really took over at that safety spot last year. Talking about a guy who's 6'1" with a 6'8" wingspan, which means that even if he gets beat, because he has a tendency to get beat, he can recover and knock away the ball with that length that he has. He has that ball hawking ability. He's a guy that I'm a big fan of this personally. I know a lot of other guys on the other side, but I like guys who wrap when they tackle. I don't want a guy that just comes in for the big hit stick and then the guy knocks sideways, but you might not have knocked him off his feet, and he's able to continue moving forward. Kirby Joseph is a guy that wraps you when he tackles you, and I'm looking forward to seeing him show off what he can do, as well as improve on his abilities that he is lacking when it comes to ability to fill the run. He sometimes does that a bit out of control when he comes down, losing leverage in pursuit, things like that, where he's lowering his head, very dangerous in contact. He's going to get worked on. We're going to see that with the coaches. We're going to see how he takes that kind of, what his attitude is to taking these lessons in, and I'm very curious and interested to see him in these practices.
I love the NFL evolution of defensive backs, because I remember the era where they were like 5'9" through 5'10", 5'11". You see these corners and these DBs now coming in with 6'1" frame, long arms, and they putting wood on you. He's putting wood on you and hitting you hard every time. And I think Joseph is going to be a good fit, especially next to Tracy Walker, who just signed his extension. And I couldn't agree with you more. Nothing drove me crazy more than guys like Louis Delmas, who would just shoot in like a rocket and miss, trying to go for that big kill instead of wrapping up and making a sure tackle. They need that more than anything, especially with a shaky secondary. But I think he has all the skill set to make that happen with his frame. So I think he's in good hands, especially, again, I'm very high on Aaron Glenn. I think he's going to get the most out of his guys in the secondary. We saw him do that last season, and I think he's more than capable to do it now with the guys that they just brought in, who they have coming back from last season.
I think you're being very kind just calling that secondary shaky. They a lot worse than shaky. That is a terrible, god-awful I don't know which is worse, my Michigan State Spartans or my Detroit Lions when it comes to secondary. They are both terrible and make me want to gouge my eyes out watching.
I totally agree, but the only reason I say shaky is because they somehow outperformed through the circumstances of the adversity. They had a lot of injuries. Again, these guys that are coming in are proving themselves that from injury, and then they have to be able to do it again and bounce back. I'm high on what Jerry Jacobs could be. I think Warrior could be big. And again, I'm not going to overreact on Okuda's him jumping up out of a pool with weights. Like, I'm not going to go crazy about that. We need to see what you can do on the field. And that number 3 pick has to be solidified from when they drafted him. This is his 3rd season. This is make or break for him. This is huge for him to step out and establish himself as a number 1 guy.
And not just for the Lions. It's huge for Jeff Okudah, because you are talking about a guy that hasn't played a full season yet, and he's going into his 3rd year. And there was all this hype about him coming out of Ohio State. And we have no idea if that hype was deserved or not, because we haven't seen the man on the field. We saw him for a little bit his rookie season. He's a rookie. Rookies never look good when they are in primetime positions like that on the secondary. Wide receivers, when they're dictating the pace as far as running the routes, it's a little easier to look good, a la a Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase as a rookie. But on the secondary side, it's tough. It's tough for the veterans to do it, so it's damn tough for the rookies to do it. So we have no idea what Okudah is going to bring to the table. I hope he balls out and shows everyone that he was worthy of that pick. I didn't want that pick personally, and I don't want to go too far back. I'm not mad at Okudah. I'm mad at the Lions for not forcing other teams' hands by grabbing a Tua or a Herbert and then saying, come get him and bring your best package to get him. Instead, they slinkered away and drafted a secondary player instead. But I hope Okudah pans out, and this is it for him, I think. I don't think there's a year 4 if year 3 goes like years 1 and 2.
This is definitely one of those questionable Quinn Trisha picks, and this one has to pan out. This isn't like a one where they can swing and miss. So based on what they have now in the secondary, they need him to be the guy based on what they need. And he needs to do it for himself too, because who knows what's going to happen if he doesn't get his shot. But again, we're going to get a pretty good glimpse at it. Be sure to set your DVR. Check out Hardknocks, the Detroit Lions. This is their premiere on the show, August 9th, 2022. The first episode, again, is going to be on a Tuesday. Can't explain how excited. I can't contain how excited I am. It's going to be pretty awesome to watch them up on HBO.
All right, so we've picked 2 topics into one here, which worked to our advantage as far as Hardknocks as well as us talking about our rookies. Are there any other rookies that you're looking forward to seeing from? Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see too much from Jameson Williams, but are there any other rookies you're looking forward to seeing from?
I think, honestly, a lot of these guys got potential. I think the only one that we haven't talked about yet is James Mitchell, the tight end from Virginia Tech. Hockenson he's obviously solidified as the number 1 guy, but again, that other side is important too. You can't give Jared Goff too many weapons. He had plenty and succeeded when he was with the Rams, and they're trying to set him up with the exact same thing. And I like that. I think Mitchell could be a pretty big target for him. He's got good hands, very productive off the line. I think he could be important in solidifying the weapons that Goff needs. Again, you can't have too many weapons in the NFL. It's a passing area attack, and he's going to be pretty important. This is going to be a pretty big opportunity for him to establish and set himself as one of the guys for that offense.
Yeah, you're talking about a tight end that's 6'4", 250 pounds. He's a big dude that has great pass catching ability. His run blocking ability needs a little bit of work. And when you have a traditional tight end as your head coach who loved to be that blocking tight end, he's going to ask that from Mitchell. And so I'm with you. I'm very interested to watch their dynamic. I want to see the tight ends talking in general. Obviously, the head coach talking to their tight ends as a former tight end, to me, will be very interesting to see what kind of knowledge he lays on them from his years in the NFL, as well as letting them do their thing. I was all for drafting a tight end in this. I wanted Trey McBride, who would have been an earlier draft pick for the Lions. He was not going to be there when they took James Mitchell in the 5th round, not even close. But having another tight end is absolutely beneficial. We've seen what happens with teams that have 2 good tight ends, how far that offense can go. The Patriots did it very well for a few years before one of their tight ends turned out to be an absolute monster, and not in a good way. The other one was an absolute monster on the field in a great way. But hopefully that we don't have to deal with that same situation in Detroit. Hopefully our players stick to just being monsters on the field where they're supposed to be.
That would be lovely. That would be lovely. He's going to be a good company, though. I mean, lining up next to Decker on the left side or lining up to Penei Sewell on the right is going to do tremendous honors for him. They're really solidifying that offensive line. We just talked about how important the trenches were on defense. It's going to be huge on the offense as well, with as much young talent as they have, and with Jared Goff needing to have a big season. So I think it's a big opportunity for Mitchell to establish himself.
All right, and then our final pick, cornerback Chase Lucas out of Arizona State. Another guy who's a little bit smaller for his position, 5'11", but he's got a 6'3" wingspan. Another one of these team captains, which are important in ways of leadership and knowing what you're getting out of a person, if they're already been a team captain, they have that ability in them. He's able to, we've seen, if you watched any of his tape in college, he really trusts his eyes and is able to make plays on the ball. He has enough speed to stay with receivers, but he really does perform a lot better when he's in a zone or playing a little bit off man, where he can see the play happening and react, because he has a really quick burst. And this is something I think we're going to see again in Hard Knocks when we're able to focus on him, is that he might surprise some people in playing bigger than his size.
We can see that. And a good opportunity for him is that I don't think it's a lot of solidification in this lineup or this roster. Knowing how much competition there's going to be on Hard Knocks that we're going to be able to see, we're going to be able to see and give these guys an opportunity to really prove to themselves that they belong here. I like the upside of Lucas. Again, it's not really a lot of solidification in front of him, so he's going to get an opportunity to prove himself. I think he was very productive at Arizona State, and we're going to see. Again, we're going to see. It's going to be pretty interesting to check it out.
Yeah, I think I'm more interested in seeing the defensive side of the ball in Hard Knocks than I am the offensive side of the ball, because a lot of these rookies that we're taking are on the defensive side and are going to be very interesting to watch. So I think that's where my focal point will be when I'm watching this team, watching Hard Knocks, is I think a lot of it will be on the defensive side of the ball, because that's where, like you said, nothing solidified really on the defensive side of the ball. So there's going to be a lot of positions up for grabs.
If there's anywhere where you're going to be biting kneecaps, it's going to be on the defensive side of the ball. And much of the offensive excitement is for Jameson Williams. And again, how much we'll be able to see him is unknown. He couldn't miss up to 6 weeks to start the season because of his injury with his knee. It has to be the focal point of the defense, for sure. Definitely got to be for the defense on the focal.
Yeah, and speaking of, I'm glad we're talking about defense, because I hear that you and AJ have a little bit of a ranking system going on here when we're talking about different positions in football. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've been doing some rankings to get everybody ready for the season. Recently got into quarterbacks, touched up on the running backs and receivers. Figured it'd be a good time to transition over to the defense and get the fans ready, and fantasy football followers as well. I'm about to get ready for my league, so I need to get these solidification of these stats and projections. I wanted to go down the top 5 NFL defenses based on the league now. It's a lot of stacked talent, I believe, both conferences as well. But we'll just go back and forth, starting from 5, going all the way down to who we think the best is. I'll let you kick it off. Who do you have as number 5 as the best defense in the NFL?
All right, so this might be surprising because I'm not seeing them. I went through looking through a lot of lists and stuff, but I actually have the San Francisco 49ers defense as number 5 on my list. It was excellent last season. They ranked 5th in points allowed, 6th in rushing allowed, 7th in passing yards allowed. Nick Bosa, you're talking one of the best pass rushers, as well as Fred Warner, one of the best linebackers in the NFL. And when you look at that defensive line of Bosa, D Ford, Javon Kinlaw, and Eric Armstead, it's just one of the best ones out there. The problem is that secondary is almost as shaky as the Detroit Lions, but their D-line is so good that quarterbacks don't really have enough time to test that secondary, and I think that's still going to be true this upcoming year with the San Francisco 49ers, so I have them at number 5.
Okay, I'm not mad at that. That's pretty good. I got the Niners in my list, but I'll wait for you to keep going. For me, number 5, I'm going to go with the Saints. They're the only team, the only defense has been able to keep Tom Brady under control, and I like the way they play. They're one of 4 teams that held opponents under 100 yards rushing on an average for the entire season. I love what Cam Jordan's been doing in the all-pro career. He keeps getting better and better, it seems like, on both sides, whether it's pass rush, defending the run. He's fantastic. I love the game that he brings. Demario Davis was fantastic. He's the good anchor of that defense in the front 7. I love what they bring in terms of their rush and getting to the quarterback and putting pressure on, especially in a division that's really not that strong. I like the upside that they have with that. Losing Marcus Williams is going to be a big deal. He headed off to the Ravens, which they always seem to snag away these top-tier defensive guys in the offseason. But I like them bringing in Honey Badger. I think he complements the secondary well with Marshawn Lattimore. I think it just makes sense. I think that rounds off one of the strongest secondaries to go with a pretty good front 7 as well. So I like what New Orleans can do this season.
We are very much in line here so far with 2 teams that we both mentioned. So I went first on 5. Why don't you go with 4?
Okay. All right. I'll lead off with that then. A lot of these are based on projections because some of these teams are good with what they already have, but I like some of the pieces that they've added, and I think this team fits as well. I got to go with the Denver Broncos at number 4. I like what they have established. They're bringing in Randy Gregory, Bradley Chubb. I think that's huge to get off for their front 7. I like what they have in their edge rush and their pass rush. Their strong suit is clearly with their secondary, though, because I love the way Patrick Surtain established himself as a top-flight corner in this league, playing next to Justin Simmons, who's one of the best safeties as well. They're going to be tested a lot in the AFC West with that offenses that they're going to have to go against, but on paper, I like what they bring right now, so I got them at number 4.
All right, we still
still
on track
good?
with each other right now. I'm gonna tell you. So number 4, I have the New Orleans Saints. Yeah, no, we're still good. So I got the Saints at 4. We're talking about a team that ranked 4th in points allowed per game and rushing yards allowed per game last year. Everything you mentioned, being led by 2 superstars in Marshawn Lattimore as well as Cam Jordan. I've always been a fan of Cam Jordan, just his personality when he's not playing football as well as what he does on the field. And then Demario Davis, just a fantastic linebacker as well. And what you mentioned, New Orleans bringing in the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, talking about a playmaker going back home. He's going to be after the play, and adding Marcus May to his secondary as well should only make this unit more dangerous. It should be interesting to see how they do without Sean Payton at the helm. But Dennis Allen, who's taking over, is their former defensive coordinator. So the defense is still going to be there. And you're going to have to – this is a defense that – look, this team last year offensively, number of quarterbacks that came through and tried to take over was not happening. And yet this defense still led this team to a winning record of 9-8 without having any kind of example on the offensive side of the ball. That defense is here to play. Pete Warner, Zach Bond as well, a couple of Big Ten stars, could have breakout seasons at linebacker for the Saints. It's going to be a very interesting team to watch, a very fun team to watch, I think. And defensively, I think the Saints have it on lockdown. Going to number 3, for me, I was
just going to say, I'm surprised at how many teams end up always letting Honey Badger go. I think this is going to be his 4th or 5th team that he's played on already, where he was awesome and all-pro as a Cardinal. He was fantastic with Houston. I get why the Chiefs are moving on and letting him go for their money and whatnot, but I'm surprised he's bounced around this much at this point. I think he's going to be a perfect fit in New Orleans.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some extra life in his step. With as good as he's been, I think he's going to be even better, amped up every weekend to play for his hometown. You're talking about a stone's throw from LSU where he made himself famous. It's going to be a lot of fun for New Orleans fans to watch their hometown kid anchor that defense on the back.
All right, so let's get on to number 3. Go ahead.
Number 3 for me, I got the defending Super Bowl champs. Okay. The Los Angeles Rams, 9th in points allowed last season, having Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. Let's add Bobby Wagner to the mix. Now you have a superstar at all 3 levels of your defense. And there aren't that many teams in the NFL that could say that. Jalen Ramsey might be a little hyped up as far as where Madden had him as a cornerback, and sometimes he lets things get away from him that he probably shouldn't as a superstar player. But having a star player at each level of defense is huge for them. This is a team that ranked 5th in rushing yards allowed last year. They ranked 5th in sacks per game. Now, they lost Von Miller. Definitely hurts those chances as far as sacks are concerned. But Von Miller is not the Von Miller that we saw winning the championship with Denver. He has definitely lost a step. He is not the same guy. It definitely helps playing with Aaron Donald on the other side. It definitely makes your life a little bit easier. A lot of focus is going to 99, not so much on a all-time great Hall of Famer in the future for sure in Von Miller. But losing him definitely doesn't help their defense, as well as the departures of Sebastian Joseph Day. That doesn't help as well. But having a leader at all 3 positions, adding Bobby Wagner, one of the best linebackers in the game, I think you're still going to end up seeing a team that is a top 10 in defensive efficiency like they have been for the past 3 seasons. And I think they're going to be one of the top 5 defenses when it's all said and done.
We're not too far from where we are. For me, number 3, I got to re-echo your Niners pick. I think the pick for San Francisco is fitting. Anywhere in the top 5. You spoke on it. Top 5 in sacks, one of the best front sevens in all of football. And I love them adding Charvarius Ward from the Chiefs to their secondary. They is pretty shaky. They do have some pieces that they need to plug in to complement that front 7, but I think that's a good start for them. I also like Jason Verrett, the opposite side. I think he's going to really plug up and make life a little bit easier. I'm not sure if they're elite or like one of the best at their position, but I think given what they have in the front 7 is going to make life easier for them, giving them the opportunity to outperform what they need to do anyway. So I think they're pretty fitting at number 3.
You're not gonna hear an argument from me. I'm all about the Niners defense, have been for years. Even when the Seattle was getting all that talk about the Legion of Boom, I thought the Niners were absolutely screwed out of that NFC Championship game when the Seattle Seahawks went on to win it all. Their defense to me was every bit as good as the Seahawks were back then. And they're looking like they're back on that level. They've always
had awesome talent, especially like you said, the past decade. And they haven't really lost a bet. I love what they see from D Ford. Even when they had Bosa gone for when he was injured, I think not last season, but the season before, I believe it was, they still were extremely impactful with the help that they had. So I got to have them high up there in the number 3. So let's keep moving, though. Let's go on to number 2. You were just at number 3, so I'll go ahead with my 2. And it was just who you spoke on again before with the Los Angeles Rams. adding a Hall of Famer and Bobby Wagner to plug up your middle is just unbelievable. I was pretty shocked. We knew that the Rams have money to play around with. They don't really care too much about their draft picks, but they're making it rain in terms of getting people paid too. We just saw Aaron Donald, who should be happy with his contract that he just got. Jalen Ramsey, who's coming off an extension. And then Leonard Floyd, who's somebody else that should get a lot more credit for what he does at rushing off that edge. And just like we talked about earlier with the Lions, they're very versatile in how they attack you. And given what they have in some of the teams in the NFC West, I don't think they really upgraded on a lot of their offensive outside of, no, I don't think it really, San Francisco didn't do a whole lot. Seattle didn't do a whole lot. And I'm not really too sold on Arizona, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But I think LA, if anyone had LA at number 1, I would be okay with it. But for me, they're number 2.
Now, this is hilarious because I'm pretty sure you and I are going to end up with the same number 1 because your 2 through 5 has been the same as my 2 through 5, just a different order, because my number 2 is, I think, your number 4. I think you said them at 4, maybe a 3. The Denver Broncos.
Okay.
I have as my number 2 defense in the NFL. We're talking about a team that was ranked second in points allowed per game in 2021, and they played, we're talking about probably the best secondary in the NFL with Patrick Surtain and Justin Simmons. And then, of course, like you mentioned before, Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory, talented pass rushers that are going to make life hell for the opposing quarterbacks. And now, unlike last season and the season before that and the season before that, they got a quarterback. And if you notice, with a lot of these teams that we're talking about here, they have quarterbacks, and quarterbacks doing their job make your defense's life a lot easier, a lot less 3 and outs, a lot more rest for your defense so that when they come back on the field, they're ready to go. Denver now having a quarterback that can keep their defense on the bench as the offense eats up 6, 7, 8 minutes of game time to march down for a touchdown or a field goal is going to keep this defense a lot healthier, a lot happier, a lot fresher moving forward. And I think we're going to see even better out of the Denver Broncos. They might end up being the number 1 defense in football when it's all said and done, but I got them at number 2. My number 1, I think it's your number 1. I'd be shocked if you went a different way from me, but who knows?
I'm with you.
It's the Buffalo Bills. Finished last season ranking first in points allowed per game at just over 18 points. Passing yards allowed per game as well. They're excellent at taking the ball away. They ranked 3rd in total takeaways last year. And let's just add one of the best edge rushers of his generation in Von Miller to now play across from Gregory Rousseau, and who's had some pretty decent moments as a rookie. And you got yourself even a better defense. And if Tre'Davious White can be healthy, because last year he absolutely was not, went off on a season-ending knee injury. Khair Elam, as well, the Florida cornerback. You got a defense that has already made a ton of noise, and they did it without health. They did it without Von Miller, and now you're adding both of those. To me, it's just a force to be reckoned with. Again, great quarterback on the offensive side of the ball to keep your defense getting plenty of rest while they're off the field and watching what you do. Josh Allen's going to make their life a hell of a lot easier like he has the last so many years, and I think the Buffalo Bills should be 1 or 2 overall in defense by the time it's all said and done.
I agree with a lot of what you said. And yeah, we're spot on with who our number 1s are. I got Buffalo as well. I was pretty shocked how much money they gave Von Miller. I did expect him to get paid, whether it was from the Rams or wherever he went, but I thought the $154 million guarantee was pretty shocking, especially for 6 years. But again, Von Miller, you need those star-present players, especially on your defense. He's not, like you said, he's not the guy from the Denver Broncos that we saw, but you saw moments where he was still able to flash and take over some moments in some games when he was with the Rams, especially when they have as much talent around them on that defensive line. You bring in Jordan Phillips, you add Shaq Lawson, Quan Jackson there to beef up the D-line. Yeah, getting Tre'Davious is going to be huge in return. I love everything in terms of their upside. I think Leslie Frazier needs to get a lot more credit and look in terms of being possibly a head coach moving forward, because I think he's been spectacular since being hired there in 2017. Ed Oliver is improving well as a D tackle. I really like what Tremaine Edmonds has been doing. He could be up for a breakout season. And again, I keep speaking of the competition because I think that's important. I don't really see a whole lot of high-flying offenses in that division, so I'm not really sold on the Patriots or what they're doing. Miami, even with adding Tyreek, I'm not super-duper sold on. Yeah, and then the Jets are the Jets. That's going to be the theme of there. The Jets are the Jets. So, yeah, I like what I've got to see from the Bills. I think they're going to be a dominant defensive front this year in this team.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you, especially with the lack of competition in the AFC East. Bill Belichick and the Pats, you assume they're going to figure it out and be a good football team, but I don't think they're there yet. Yeah, they stole that game last year against Buffalo, returned the favor and then some in the playoffs, absolutely dismantling the Patriots. The Jets, like you said, are the Jets. If there is a challenge, I think it will be from the Miami Dolphins, because along with Tyreek Hill coming over there, they also added Raheem Mostert. And if Raheem Mostert can stay healthy, this is one of the most slept-on running backs in all of the NFL. The dude is powerful. He is faster than he looks. And when he is healthy, he's one of the best backs in football. The problem is the man can't stay on the field. And while that was a bit of a problem with the Niners, who seem to have 17 different running backs that can get the job done for you, including their wide receiver in Deebo Samuel, Miami doesn't have that luxury. So if he's out, Miami might have some issues. But if he's healthy, they are the team that I think will give Buffalo the most trouble in the AFC East.
It's possible. Yeah, I'm just confused about a lot of I see from New England. You were touching on them. They're literally running a set where they're not even naming their coordinators. And before that, it was Patricia who was supposed to be their offensive coordinator, and he was a defensive guy, which he sucked at then. So I don't know what they're doing. I love Belichick. I love the credit he's got as one of the greatest coaches ever, but I'm very puzzled with what they're doing. But yeah, that'll wrap up our five. It's we did good. Me and AJ we tipped a little bit on some of our guys in our positioning, but I think we're pretty spot on what we got here.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious that we got the same five when it was all said and done, because there were other teams out there that are making some noise. The Tampa Bay Bucks, they have a very good defense, same issues as the Bills last year. Health was an issue. Their secondary couldn't stay healthy, which absolutely helped them crumble when it counted. They were absolutely a team that you could talk about. The Dallas Cowboys, a team that could have been talked about. There were other teams in this mix that neither one of us seemed to choose for our top five. So I think it's hilarious that we have the same five teams, albeit in somewhat different orders. So not bad for two guys that haven't worked together before getting the job done.
High five to us, man. Well done.
Yes, sir.
Yep. So a lot of those teams they had. Yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
All right. Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say a lot of those teams we spoke about. They have a lot of high expectation on them, and a big bombshell that dropped in the league, I believe just this past week, was Kyler Murray's contract extension. He's been in talk a lot of offseason, from scrubbing his IG account of all the pictures of the Cardinals and seemingly trying to separate from them. Pretty sure he's happy now after cashing in and agreeing to a 5-year extension worth up to $230 million, $160 million guaranteed. He's under contract until 2028. I understand why they did it. I'm not super high on Kyler Murray or the Cardinals, but I understand why they did it. It's going to paint a huge target on their back. So I wanted to dive in a little bit for that. Instead of just picking apart on Kyler, unless this is one of your answers, I wanted to take a look and see at who you thought were some of the players that have the most pressure on them coming into this upcoming season.
Kyler is now definitely one of them. And look, again, with you, I understand why Arizona did it. Arizona has not had a consistent quarterback in forever. You had Carson Palmer for a little bit on and off. You had Kurt Warner at the end of his career. Before that, everyone else they brought in, Matt Leinart and whatnot, they just couldn't get the job done. And the man I feel worse for is Larry Fitzgerald. This poor guy is still put up a Hall of Fame career with nobody throwing to him. Imagine what he would have done if he had a quarterback his entire career. We're probably looking at the all-time leader in receiving yards, maybe tickling Jerry Rice there when it's all said and done if he had a real quarterback his entire career. But Arizona's just never had that. So by signing Murray to this deal, you now have that quarterback you think for the foreseeable future. The longest tenure you're going to have as a Cardinal quarterback, it's going to be Kyler Murray, as long as he does his job, which is continue to improve, because Arizona has done that year in and year out with him. Every year has been better than the previous year. He's got to figure out how to close the season, and being hurt definitely doesn't help that situation. So he's got to stay healthy. But his first half of the season last year, we're talking about MVP candidate and the Cardinals running away with the NFC. They absolutely dismantled the Rams in their first meeting last year and took out all the MVP talk for Matthew Stafford that was going on at that point, and it all went to Kyler Murray. It didn't finish that way the second half of the season, and then the Rams absolutely dismantled them in the playoffs. So I understand why the Cardinals did what they did. But as far as guys on the hot seat, obviously the quarterback is the easy one to poke at. And you're looking at guys like Daniel Jones, too. And in my mind, one that doesn't get talked about, and I don't know why, is Dak Prescott. This man gets so much praise and acclaim. And for the life of me, I can't figure it out, because he hasn't done a damn thing in Dallas besides make a whole bunch of Campbell Chunky Soup commercials. and some sleep number commercials for the bed. But like, his first year was Zeke's first year, and Zeke went dumb. And so everyone was like, oh, man, Dak and Zeke and blah, blah, blah. Guess what? Since then, Zeke has not gone dumb, and Dak has gone with them. He has not been that great. He has not been that great in crucial moments when it matters. You look at the end of the Niners-Cowboys playoff game as a perfect example of you've got to get that job done, and you just flat out blow it. I don't know how he isn't on the hot seat, if it's just because it's the Cowboys or what, but I think Dak Prescott is a name that absolutely should be on the hot seat because I think he is absolutely underperformed for the name and publicity that he has gotten.
It's not going to get easier for him. I don't mind that they got rid of Amari Cooper, but you traded him for, what, a 6th-round pick? We saw Hollywood Brown go for a 1st in the draft. You dipped one of the best route runners in the league for a bag of chips. That made no sense to me. I like having Dak on that list. I'm going to stick with Arizona. I did a little bit of a curveball because I didn't want to go just quarterbacks either because that's just too easy. But I'm going to go with a coach. Cliff Kingsbury I think, needs some attention on him. Because the Cardinals bother me every season, ever since he's been there. They seem to play at their best when it's off script. They seem to do their best when it's like backyard football, when Kyler's just scrambling around and they don't really have a play going. Like, that's the best of his passing attack. We know what they do in terms of the run. I really like their attack, but it seems like they're just too inconsistent. Like, they started off, 6 or 7-0 before having to run into the Packers on, Thursday Night Football, I think it was. And then after that, they finished the season 11-6, not looking very impressive throughout the rest of the season. Obviously, like you said, they got smoked in the playoffs in the first round. They were, I believe, 7th in penalties. Like, they just strike me as this super undisciplined team. And again, I wouldn't mind if they finished 11-6 again. I'm not going to pull that record. That's fantastic. But the way they play, to me, I'm not sold on whatsoever. I don't think they strike me way more as pretenders than contenders, and I think Cliff Kingsbury is a big reason behind that. So I think some extra attention needs to be on him. He might be hot. He's not going to be fired next season, but I think something needs to be said about this team and where they're not going in this underachievement they've been doing.
I'm not against you. I'm with you on it. The Cardinals, just in general, are a bit of an enigma. You're talking about a team that broomed out their head coach and their brand new starting quarterback for a brand new head coach who then drafted his own guy to be the starting quarterback. And now you just given that starting quarterback a ridiculous contract that a lot of people don't believe he was worthy of. I understand numbers are just getting more and more ridiculous when it comes to NFL contracts. But when you are lumping yourself in with Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, as far as the amount of money that you are getting per year, you've got to perform to go with it.
Yes.
Rodgers has a Super Bowl. It was a long time ago, but he has a Super Bowl and a bunch of MVPs. Mahomes has a Super Bowl, went back to another, and has an MVP. Kyler Murray doesn't have a playoff win, and he's only got one playoff appearance. Again, 3rd year, plenty of time to get better, but you are giving all of this to your quarterback, and the rest of your team is going to suffer for it as far as what you can pay them, who you can keep, who you are forced to let go. Not everyone's like Tom Brady that says, you know what, give me less money, put the rest of the team, give me a chance to win Super Bowls. I don't know why. I think every quarterback should be like that. Are you stupid? Go win Super Bowls and you'll get more money later out of it. But for whatever it is, that's the way a lot of them think. I got to get mine, and I get it. Generational wealth where you can keep your family and their family safe and protected for generations to come with the amount of money you're bringing in. I understand that side of it. But if the goal is to win championships, maybe you can take about 15 to 20 mil less and let them give it to a couple other guys who are going to help you win a championship while you're still getting your generational wealth. So it's interesting that the head coach can be on the hot seat when you just gave the quarterback all of that money in the first place. But I'm not against it. I'm absolutely with you.
And it definitely helps for Tom Brady to be able to make that sacrifice when his wife is a supermodel millionaire. So maybe that makes it a little bit easier for him. But we'll keep just a tiny bit. Who else do you got on the hot seat?
I'm going back to them boys, man. And I'm going back to the other side of that great rookie duo that was amazing when they first came out. Nice. Ezekiel Elliott. Okay. Where you been, man? You came out the gates smoking. And we have seen your numbers decline every single year since 2018. And now you got Tony Pollard, who came out last year racking up over 1,000 scrimmage yards, averaging a better yards per carry than you at 5.5 versus 4.2. You look like you're about to be splitting time with a guy when you should absolutely be the boss hog in that situation and be that bell carrier back in and out of nonstop all game. You ain't been that. You're sitting there doing this when you're younger. I haven't seen you do any of that over the last couple of years. No one wants to feed you more because you're not getting anything out of it, and the Cowboys offense is going with you. So, Zeke, it's time to stay healthy, stay in shape, and get the job done like you did your rookie year, and I ain't seen since.
It's crazy. They paid him with that expectation. Seeing that Tony Pollard is now the guy that's getting more looks in terms of runs and catches. The catches I get, but the running is just nuts. He used to be bursting through the lines and breaking tackles. Now you see him just getting chopped in his legs and he can't move. The regression of Ezekiel Elliott has been embarrassing. Somebody I have is just somebody that's just getting way too much pub for me. AJ, if you're watching, you know exactly who I'm about to pick. Joe Burrow is on a hot seat for me. This is for me. I know people love Joe Burrow. I like Joe Burrow. He's a good player. But can we slow down on this kid? Please, listen. He was fantastic last year. I give him all the credit in the world. 34 touchdowns, 14 picks, 4,600 yards thrown. Fantastic player. He's got an improved offensive line. I do the upside that they have with the team. And then obviously his aerial attack with the receivers he has with the all-pro Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. They're going to be fantastic. I have no questions about that. But I have never seen this kind of love and adulation for a Super Bowl loser. I've never seen it. I've never seen so many top 10 quarterback rankings where he's in front of the guy who just beat him. I've never seen that before. So, again, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's a bust. I'm not saying he can't play. It's just the crowning of him over guys like Stafford, who just played basically as well as he did, if not better, in the postseason and regular season. Even Russell Wilson, I think, is like being over or below him is too much. Like, I just think we're crowding Joe Burrow way too soon. Again, I'm not saying he's a bust, but I want to see him do it again to validate what everybody is saying right now.
Okay. I'm not going to argue with the hate that other quarterbacks are getting versus the love that Joe Burrow is getting. However, how many second-year quarterbacks have you seen take their team to the Super Bowl in the first place?
Very short.
The list is not very long. And he did it for a team that is as bad historically as the Lions and the Browns and the Jaguars and the Cardinals and all these other really bad franchises throughout NFL history. They had a nice run in the 80s. They went to a couple Super Bowls, lost to Joe Montana both times. You had Boomer Esiason, who was your best quarterback you ever had for a long time, and Joe Burrow about to smash that man's records out the water. He's had no offensive line until now. It's all these names that you just, that I'm looking at your notes here that you threw in perfectly in Ted Karras, Alex Kappa, and Lael Collins. The offensive line is fixed and should be ready to go. And with it, Joe Burrow should be ready to go with them. He's a fantastic talent who took football by storm. He left Ohio State, and no one knew who he was. Had 1 year at LSU, wins the whole damn thing, goes undefeated, wins the national championship, wins the Heisman, boom, sweeps everything, and now on to the NFL, where you saw a flash of him, and then he got hurt, and he was done for the season. And then his second year, and you bring his wide receiver in, Jamar Chase from LSU as well, and it took him a minute because preseason wasn't going great, and then Jamar Chase just took off, and Joe Burrow took off with him. And they did all this without any kind of protection whatsoever. You look at the number of times that man was sacked last year, it's absolutely ridiculous. Now, do I think he's a better quarterback than Matthew Stafford or Russell Wilson? Not a chance. I'm sorry. He might have been flashier last year and caught people off guard, but is he as intelligent as them? Is he as good as them? No, he's not there. And the disrespect for Matthew Stafford as far as Madden's concerned, it's whatever. It's a video game, and I'm not going to give it that much attention. Matthew Stafford's been disrespected his entire career. So there's no reason to give it that much attention. He's used to it. And look, we saw it with the Super Bowl in general. You gave the MVP to a wide receiver where if the other wide receiver, Odell Beckham Jr., stays in that game and doesn't get hurt, and each of those wide receivers have 2 or 3 touchdowns, and Stafford's sitting back there with 5 or 6 touchdown passes, you can guarantee number 9 ends up hosting that MVP trophy to go along with the Vince Lombardi. Didn't happen. They found a way to screw him out of that. It's Matthew Stafford's career. It's what he's used to, and it doesn't matter just because you changed teams to Los Angeles. Everyone's known you for 12, 13 years now, and this is the way it's been. So it's just going to be that way until he goes and wins it again and then wins Super Bowl MVP. And then they're going to start talking about number 9 differently. But we're focusing on the other number 9, Joe Burrow. Fantastic quarterback. Look forward to seeing him for the next decade plus, along with Justin Herbert, along with Patrick Mahomes. Along with Josh Allen. I am looking forward to seeing those 4 do their thing for the next decade because I think they are very fun to watch and very good at the position. But I'm with you. He got way too much love, and I think having him above some of these other names in the Madden rankings, again, it's a video game. They can do whatever they want. Those numbers will be different at the end of the year, and I'll be surprised if Joe Burrow is still above both of them, or at least have the same damn numbers around each other and not be 3, 4, 5 points above them when you talk about how important these Madden rankings are. I think it's going to be a lot closer at year's end.
Yeah, we'll see it. Again, I'm not questioning his potential in any way, shape, or form. They're setting up beautifully in Cincinnati. Again, as a fan of the Detroit Lions, I love a good rebuild. And I think Cincinnati is the king and doing a great job right now with him. Just pump the brakes a little bit. Just a little bit. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking for the NFL world. That's it.
No, I'm with you. Unfortunately, we got to pump the brakes on this show as well because we've been going at this for an hour. So it is time to say goodbye to the folks. I don't know how y'all do it at Beyond the Box, so I'm going to just do it for you the way I'm used to doing it. Don't forget to subscribe everywhere that you can find Beyond the Box. That would be on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, full episodes on YouTube, as well as DetroitSportsNation.com. I'm Matt Bassin, filling in for AJ Riley. AJ, congratulations again on child number 3. Eric, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. I hope we get to do this again.
Yes, sir. Can't wait. Thank y'all for rocking with us.
See y'all again. Peace.
Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on a what? Yeah.